back there at the camera? I can't tell who you are. Good morning. Thank you for joining me on a Saturday morning to talk through some components of our policies and procedures here at LeTourneau that help to create a healthy community here on campus. This is a little bit heavier of a conversation than you may have had in other sessions that you've been a part of yet, but we want to make sure that you know the resources that you have and the policies that are in place to help protect you and help protect our community, and what steps you can take if you find yourself in a situation where you're needing some help. So what we're going to talk about today are just really what a community, for this slide, is what a community is and the ways that our community impacts each other. And this slide is a quote from Wendell Berry, who does a lot of thinking and talking about community and place and home and what these concepts really mean to us. And I like this quote because I think it says a lot about how we live together here on campus. And it says, "A community is the mental and spiritual condition of knowing that the place is shared and that the people who share the place define and limit the possibilities of each other's lives. It is the knowledge that people have of each other, their concern for each other, their trust in each other, the freedom with which they come and go among themselves." And you may not realize it, but you have the ability to shape this place and define and limit the possibilities of your classmates, of your instructors, and all of those people have that same ability with you as well. And so it's important for us to think about the ways that we treat each other, the ways that we are treated, and how that might shape and define our possibilities and our opportunities here on campus. So we really want everyone on campus to feel a sense of respect from their classmates, from their instructors, from their staff members, and a sense of belonging. And we want you to feel like this is home, this is my place, I belong here. And there are a lot of ways that we go about building respect and belonging in your cornerstones groups, in your classes, discussions, having events together, getting to know each other, being engaged on campus. But there's also some policies that we have in place that help prevent negative experiences or kind of remedy experiences that might limit your ability to feel respect and belonging on campus. And those are the things we're going to talk about today. Some ways that we try to ensure that you feel respected and that you are able to belong here if difficulties come your way that may seem like they're preventing that. So some of the policies that we're going to talk about are the Title IX and sexual misconduct prevention and reporting, anti-harassment policies and how to report, anti-hazing policies and reporting, and suicide prevention and awareness. And you'll see some of these things are anti-things instead of saying a harassment policy. We're saying we are not about these things. We are not about harassment. We are not about hazing. And we are going to do our best to ensure that those things do not happen. If we come up against them, we have policies that help to remediate those situations and prevent things in the future. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Title IX, which is it's a statute that came into place in 1972, Title IX of Education Amendments. And when it first started, this is all it said, this sentence: no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. What this was really meant to do was make sure that women had equal access to educational opportunities, that they were accepted into schools, that they were allowed to be part of programs. It then it made non-discrimination based on gender a condition of participation in federally funded education programs. Now, you may say, well, this is a private school, and so we're not federally funded. We are a private school. However, we receive aid from federal sources in terms of student loans, grants, and so we are federally funded, and we do comply with Title IX and other federal guidelines because we do receive funding. Also because thinking about things like sexual misconduct is the right thing to do, and we want to do right by our students and make sure that we are harassment-free and sexual misconduct-free, and we want to be held accountable for those things. So Title IX applies to all recipients of federal funds, and it applies to educational program equity, so programs like athletics and making sure that there's equal access to academic programs, and then also to sexual harassment and sexual assault. So our sexual misconduct policy applies to all members of our community, faculty, staff, and students. And it goes into great detail to explain our processes and our procedures that we'll take with any investigation or any report of sexual harassment or misconduct. And it covers, so this sexual misconduct policy, it covers things that are considered non-consensual sexual misconduct. So yesterday we talked a little bit about our student handbook and our community covenant, and that the university views sex as between a man and a woman within marriage. And so there are violations that may apply to students who are engaged in consensual sexual misconduct that would not be a part of the Title IX policy, that would be handled through our conduct process. But the Title IX policy is looking at things that are non-consensual or apply to, are non-consensual and are reported through the Title IX process. So there could be two different routes that a person could take, but if somebody is making a complaint that fits the Title IX process, that will be handled through the Title IX channels. And so this policy is a good first place to look if you have questions and aren't sure where to go. It's at our Title IX webpage. It's letu.edu/Title-IX. So that's Roman numeral 9. And it has other resources there as well. So the types of discrimination that would be addressed through the Title IX office, these are some examples. Things like stalking, sexual assault, unwanted persistent comments from a faculty or staff member, discriminatory behavior from a faculty or staff member. If someone said like, oh, you can't, you can't, or girls aren't as good at this thing, or guys aren't as good at this thing. Unwanted touching or groping, inappropriate jokes told in class or study groups. So in an educational environment where a person is making crude jokes and talking about things that should not be happening in that setting, that can be considered discrimination and harassment. Also, dating violence and domestic violence can be addressed through the Title IX process. An important thing for students to remember, this is a lot of words on this slide, but what we want you to know, because often Title IX complaints come up through channels where a person may feel the person who is making the complaint, or considered a complainant if you're making a complaint against someone else, and a respondent if you are responding to a complaint. But oftentimes a complainant may feel like, I did not do everything right in this situation. I was harassed, or I was assaulted, but I was drunk at the time, and I should not have been drunk at the time because I abide by the community covenant for the university. But I still need to report this, and I need to get some services and some help with that. So our policy does include this amnesty clause that says that we want to encourage the reporting of these things over, that's the most important part to us. So we want to encourage the reporting of sexual misconduct policy violations, and that individuals may be hesitant to report to university officials because they fear that they may be charged with violations, such as underage drinking at the time of the incident. We think it's in the best interest of LeTourneau and our community that individuals who have experienced or have knowledge of sexual misconduct report it. To encourage reporting, our policy offers a person who makes a good faith report to the university that they are a victim of or witness to sexual misconduct, or who participates in an investigation, limited amnesty from being charged with violations of other policies, such as the university's alcohol policy. And so what we would do, amnesty may not be extended in instances where an employee engaged in conduct constituting a violation of other university policies that harmed an individual, or where an employee who engaged in violation of another university policy holds a leadership role on campus, including a leadership role over students or employees, or where an employee is engaged in a violation of another university policy with a student. In those cases, so say if a resident assistant is found responsible for something, they may not be able to keep their job because they've demonstrated poor judgment in upholding the behavioral expectations, but they're going to experience, they may not be kicked out of school, or they may not lose their right to be here as a student, because we want to make sure that the reporting of the incident happens and is not overshadowed by a poor choice that somebody may have made along the way. So when amnesty is provided, violations of other policies may be addressed through educational options rather than discipline. So we may ask a person to take a course, or write a paper, or read a book, or have some mentoring discussions with a staff member to help them understand the effects of their behaviors. But if a student is found to have violated a policy in the process of a Title IX violation, we're going to work with them. Our desire is for them to remain here, remain in community, and to offer support and help for those students. There have been many schools in the news and involved in legal disputes over their code of conduct preventing people from making reports of sexual misconduct, and that is not what we want or desire. We want people to feel comfortable to get the services they need and make the reports that they need, and we will work together for a positive outcome through educational routes rather than punitive routes. So how do you report a violation of the sexual misconduct policy? We have a team that handles our sexual misconduct areas. So I am the coordinator for Title IX, and again, I'm Christy Morgan, Vice President for Student Affairs, and our deputy coordinator is Phyllis Turner, our Director for Human Resources, and then we have a team of investigators and others that help work on cases. You can always report to me in person. We have a form online that you can make a report. You can make a confidential report as well. It will limit our ability to respond to it somewhat if we don't know enough information about the situation. But sometimes people feel uncomfortable making a report with their name attached to it, which we understand. So we've got a few different ways for you to report. I want you to know that these are usually conversations where students feel very uncomfortable coming to make a report, to talk about something sexual with the Vice President for Student Affairs or the Director for Human Resources, or students may feel shame or guilt about their involvement. And I want you to know that we do not want you to feel any shame, and we see these as good opportunities to help students, and it is probably a much more uncomfortable conversation for you on your end than it is for us. There is little that we haven't heard or that we haven't known from students already, but I know that it is difficult for students, and I always want them to know that we're going to still look each other in the eye when we pass each other on the sidewalk. We are still going to, you're still going to get the same treatment as any other student in any other need that you have here on campus. And so don't want you to feel that you can't come forward because you're going to lose favor in anybody's eyes here. We are here to help you. So my information is at the end of this, and I'll give that to you again at the end. We also have some confidential reporting options. If you come to me to report it as a Title IX coordinator, I'm going to have to take some action on it. I'm going to have to evaluate whether this incident has effect on a broader community, or whether there's safety concerns for others as a whole, and I'll have to take some level of action with your consent to kind of evaluate the situation. And everyone at the university, every employee has an obligation to report things that they know about. So if you write something in a paper about a sexual assault or being harassed or something like that, that could be making a report. If you ask a professor to speak with you about something and you share with them, they'll have an obligation to let me know what they have knowledge of. And that's really to keep our campus as a whole safe. And there are situations that happen where a person might be committing a violation in lots of different settings, but unless it's all kind of brought to light, we may not know the extent of the activity. And so we ask everybody who works here to be a mandatory reporter. Now, you do have confidential reporting options. If you're seeking help and you may just want to find some resources for how do I deal with this, I need some counseling, I need some advice, may not be at the point that you want to report, the Center for Counseling staff are confidential reporters, as well as it says university chaplain. He's our campus pastor, Dr. Mays. Within the context of his role as campus pastor, he is a confidential reporting option, and our director for health services. And their roles allow them to be confidential reporting options because of their professional capacity. So if you're seeking help for, through health services, and you tell the nurse something about something related to our sexual misconduct policy, she will not report that further. Same with the campus pastor and the Center for Counseling staff. They may talk with you about options and may even encourage you to make a report, but they will not make a report on your behalf. They may be required to share a limited amount of information with me if campus safety is a concern. So students are often concerned about the confidentiality of these processes. Who knows when a report is made? We keep this process as confidential as possible. Coaches, faculty, and staff who are not involved in a case would not be notified about this. The people who are involved in the case are the people who would be notified. And we take all steps to prevent retaliation. I mean, big concern is if I make a report, is this person going to physically intimidate me? Are they going to come after me? Are they going to cyberbully me? There's lots of concerns, and we take all possible steps to prevent retaliation. And if any retaliation does occur, we will immediately take disciplinary action. So some things that you can do to help. You may think, well, I'm definitely not going to violate this policy. I'm definitely going to steer clear of situations that I could be implicated in this. But some things that you can do to help are to model and encourage appropriate talk and behavior around sexuality. If you have a friend who likes to make jokes putting down somebody of another gender, or make jokes about body parts or things like that, just stop it. So stop inappropriate behavior whenever it's observed. Model talk that is representative of the values that we share here at LeTourneau. Report any situations that you have knowledge of, and encourage friends who may be involved in situations to come forward to receive help and services. And then consult with me when you have questions. You don't have to come and report a whole situation at once. I deal with a lot of hypotheticals. I often have students come to me and say, I just want to run a situation past you and get your advice about how to proceed. And I will not force you to give me information, but I'd like to help you with making decisions about your best options moving forward. And making a report does not necessarily mean that a student gets kicked out of school or endures some sort of harsh punishment. There are lots of incremental steps that we can help. It may be something like, how do we help you, kind of deal with this within your friend group, or ask a person to stop asking you out if they keep asking you out repeatedly, and say, I'm really just not interested. There are lots of things kind of along the way that may be uncomfortable situations that you find yourself in that we can help talk through. We also have an anti-harassment policy that is just generally, it can include things that are sexual, but also just any type of harassment. We're committed to vigorously enforcing any type of harassment, so unwelcome slurs, jokes, comments, graphic or physical conduct, other intimidating, hostile, or offensive communication relating to an individual's race, religion, sex, age, national origin, or disability. So these things definitely will not contribute to a person's sense of belonging and how they are respected within our community if they're experiencing these things. So be careful of your language. Be careful of the things that you're sharing, even the memes and the jokes that you may think are funny but really can be offensive to other people. And if you feel like you're the target of bullying or harassment, we want you to definitely report that so we can help you with that situation. It can be online or in print. Threats, stalking, intimidation, humiliation, pestering, coercion. Any conduct that threatens or endangers the physical, psychological, or emotional health or belongings of any person. We do not want anybody to have to experience this. I would say I think this is a very rare occurrence on our campus, and I'm glad for that, but I want to make sure you're aware of how to go about asking for help should you feel like you need it. We also, like all institutions, have an anti-hazing policy, and hazing is an act that endangers the mental or physical health or safety of a student for the purpose of initiation, admission into, affiliation with, or condition for continued membership in a group or organization. So these hazing most commonly is associated with Greek life, fraternities, sororities, societies, as a part of membership into a group that you have to endure certain humiliations or activities to kind of prove your loyalty to them. We are 100% anti-hazing. You are a member of this community, 100%. You do not have to do anything humiliating to prove that membership. You may think giving a speech in your speech class is humiliating. You may have to do that as part of being here, but there is no group or organization here on campus that can ask you to do something that is threatening to you as part of your membership. And if anyone does, we want to know about that, and we want to help you with that. So how to report harassment, bullying, or hazing. The Dean of Students, Dr. Khan, is a great resource for you to speak with about any of these concerns, or your residence life staff. They are all very aware of our rules and processes, and may be able to help you stop this on a low level. We do not want every situation where a person is insensitive or bullying or being rude or crude to have to be a big deal. We would like to stop it at the lowest level. So help with language around, I feel like I'm experiencing this and this person feels like they're targeting me. How do we address that situation between you and that person so that it does not build into a big situation that affects you for your entire college career? And all of your residents, life staff, and Dr. Khan can help with those as resources. If you're not a student on campus, you're a commuter, then Dr. Khan would probably be your first person that you can contact, but residents, life staff will help you as well. Okay, so the last kind of area that I wanted to talk about with you today is about suicide among college students. And this is a very serious situation that I think we've seen an uptick across the board with mental health concerns for students. And I think in the midst of COVID, we're not really sure how people's mental health will be affected through COVID. So these are numbers from before COVID, but I think there's additional concerns for people's mental health related to anxiety and worry, or isolation, or depression. And so we want to be very aware of how we can help our friends and our community out related to mental health, and want you to know about some resources that we have and kind of warning signs to look for if you feel like you yourself may be struggling or you may have a friend who is struggling. So these are, like I said, some statistics from pre-COVID, and I think it's still to be seen, how this next year or two will affect all of our mental health. But suicide is believed to be the second leading cause of death for college students. Nationally, 18% of undergraduate students and 15% of graduate students have seriously considered attempting suicide at some point in their lives. 8% of undergraduate students and 5% of graduate students have attempted suicide at some point in their lives. And we know that it's likely that you know someone who has been affected by this, or you may have been affected by this issue at some point. Some risk factors that are specific to college students. So there's lots of risk factors just in general, but college students kind of live in this strange suspended term of or period of life where there's a lot of risk factors that may particularly affect them. Things like being in a new environment. Right now, you guys are in a new environment, and it's an extra strange environment. And just that uncertainty of the new environment. Loss of a social network. Your network from high school probably disbanded a little bit early and may have been kind of fragile or tenuous over the last few months, and that can be a cause for concern. Loss of the safety net found at home. In college, your parents aren't there kind of making sure that you're going all the places that you need to go, or they're not there to bounce ideas off of when you come back home. And that can be kind of stressful. Also, pressure academically or socially can feel enormous, or can start to feel even bigger than it actually is when it becomes kind of hyper-focused. Isolation and alienation, lack of coping skills, just the lack of experience with kind of overcoming some challenges. By sophomore year, junior year, you're going to be good at overcoming challenges. You're going to have gotten a bad grade and had to kind of recover from that. But at the beginning, there's some things that you haven't really learned yet that can feel overwhelming, but you will get there. The difficulty of adjusting to the new demands of college life can feel really stressful. And sometimes there's decreased academic performance and feelings of failure. I know when I my freshman year of college, I'd never had really a bad grade or anything before, and I got put into a senior level course that I should not have been in, and I did not do well in that class, and it made me wonder, am I cut out for this? Can I do this? And I was grateful to have a professor who pulled me aside and said, you're doing great, but you're in the wrong class. and your grade reflects that you're not prepared to be in here, and kind of helped me understand that situation a little bit better. But those types of situations where you just feel like I'm in over my head, these other people have had exposure to things that I haven't, can be stressful. And experimentation with drugs and alcohol is a huge risk factor for mental health issues. And sometimes that comes up in college. We ask that you not participate in activities with drugs and alcohol. One of the reasons is we think your mental health is going to be better off for it. So those are a lot of things that can feel kind of overwhelming. Like, gosh, I'm dealing with a lot that I didn't even ask for. But we have resources to help you, and we want to eliminate that loss of social network. We want to help the new environment become not so new really quickly, and we want to make sure that you are not alienated or isolated from our campus. Some protective factors that help students kind of mitigate those, the last slide, all of those issues, some things that are going to help you kind of adapt more quickly than others who may not choose to engage with these protective factors or may not have them. One is a supportive social and family network. If you've got people around you who are cheering you on, who can kind of help you recover more quickly from things where you're like, man, I really blew that, and they can kind of help put those things in context and move you forward, that's going to help you a ton. Problem solving and conflict resolution skills. If you've got some skills in, working out an issue with your roommate before it blows up, or when it does blow up, dealing with that quickly instead of letting that fester and kind of create a cloud over your whole freshman year, that's going to help you a lot. And that's a lot of what you have RAs and RDs around you to help you with some of those problem solving and conflict resolution skills when you feel like your professor isn't giving you the help that you need, being able to address them in a respectful and mature way and say, hey, I really kind of need some more help here, and kind of addressing those head on. That's going to help you a lot. The ability to regulate emotions, to kind of understand that a bad day today does not have to be a bad day for the rest of the week, but that you can kind of recover from, and cope is the next one. Coping with difficulties, being able to move forward, and having some resilience. A positive view of the future is a huge protective factor that will help you be able to see, like, okay, this situation is bad, but I have this thing that I'm working for in the future. A lot of classes can be very tedious and can be frustrating, and you say, but I really want to be a pilot, or I really want to be a nurse, and I know these things will help me. And being able to see those things out in the future will help you deal with the challenges as you're facing them. Also, cultural or religious beliefs that discourage suicide. Believing that God has a purpose for you and wants you here and knows the struggles that you're dealing with and is intimately involved in your life, it goes a long way to helping be that protective factor that will help you move forward. And then access to mental health care. And I'm going to share with you some of the ways that you have access to mental health care in a couple of slides. But you all have access to mental health care. Some warning signs that you might see in yourself that might kind of make you want to reach out and get some help. We hope they will make you want to reach out and get help and not isolate. Or warning signs you might see in a roommate or a friend that we just want you to be aware of them so that you can get some help if needed. Talking or making plans for suicide. Talking about or making plans for suicide. That's a definite warning sign. Expressing hopelessness about the future. Just, I don't know if I can go on. Those kinds of statements can be concerning. Displaying severe or overwhelming emotional pain or distress, where a person may be going through a situation and you're like, whoa, that is a big reaction to that situation. It's a bad situation, but that is an even bigger reaction. That can be a sign. Showing worrisome behavioral cues or marked changes in behavior. Things like withdrawal from or changing social connections or situations. People who were always up for, getting together and doing something, or people who were always, willing to FaceTime with you and talk about things, and they're just withdrawing and sleeping a lot can be a big cue. Increased or decreased sleep. So a person is like never going to sleep, or a person is sleeping all day long, missing meals, really erratic sleep patterns can be a sign. Anger or hostility that seems out of context, where they just kind of blow up about things that seem not worth blowing up about. Recent increased agitation or irritability. So these are things that I think kind of throughout COVID, people are a little bit more stressed, and I think these could define just people being a little bit more agitated, a little bit more withdrawn. So it may be difficult to see sometimes, but we're looking for things that seem pretty extreme and big shifts in people. And we want you to help people reach out to get help, or you reach out to get help if you feel like you're impacted by it. Some of the resources that we have available are our own Center for Counseling that's here on campus in Longview Hall. Offers free counseling to students from a biblical perspective. There's the phone number to reach out to them, 233-3490, or you can email counseling@letu.edu to set up an appointment. We also have a crisis line here in East Texas that you can call if you feel like you're in crisis and you're needing help. And all of these resources we will make available to you in another format, more visible, bulletin boards on your floor, in the student handbook, and in other resources where you can find them should you need them. There's a national lifeline and a suicide prevention crisis chat that you can reach out to. Of course, we would love to help you here on campus with your concerns. So the Center for Counseling or any of your residents, life staff, or any of the student life staff are great to reach out to. I think that any of your professors would want to know if you're struggling and be able to help you. We're pretty interpersonal. We care about each other. We want to be able to walk through difficult things with each other. So any person you feel safe reaching out to, we want you to do that so that we can help you get the resources that you need. So I'm going to share with you a video that was put together that just kind of talks about people who had friends who were struggling with suicide during college, and you may identify with some of the things that they share here. So I'll start that video now.
She seemed like she was having a hard time fitting in.
I don't remember many people asking them to hang out.
She took the breakup really hard.
Things weren't the same after she failed that first test.
He worried a lot about disappointing his parents.
He started having a hard time after he got bad news from home.
She started pulling away and wouldn't hang out anymore.
Every time I came home from class, she looked like she'd been crying.
I knew something was up when he gave away his grandpa's watch. He had always told me how much he loved it.
I was worried about him because he hardly ate and was always sleeping.
They even stopped doing the things they loved.
She started drinking almost every day.
He even tried to sell some of his stuff.
I also noticed that she posted weird messages on social media, like, soon this will all be over.
She said she just wished she could go to sleep and not wake up.
They said they were tired of feeling lonely.
She told me that she felt really hopeless about pulling her grade up.
He said he wished he could disappear so he wouldn't be a burden to his family.
He said that I didn't have to worry about him next semester.
I was always taught to mind my own business. Everyone is stressed when they start college, right?
A couple times, I almost tried to talk to them, but didn't, because I figured someone else would.
I did wonder if I was making too big of a deal of it. I didn't want to offend her.
I didn't know what to do or how to help her.
I wanted to ask him if he was thinking about suicide, but I didn't know what to do if he said yes.
I didn't want to be the one to blame if something happened.
I thought to myself, I'll feel better knowing I did something.
I knew someone in the past who had attempted suicide, so I didn't want to risk it.
I would rather have her mad at me than have her hurt or dead.
Even though I didn't know what to do, I knew I had to do something because I really cared about her.
I kept thinking, what if it were me? I'd want a friend to do something.
So I asked him, "Are you thinking about suicide?"
She said yes. So I called the crisis line and got advice on how to help.
So I hugged her, said I'm sorry, and offered to spend the afternoon with her so we can talk.
So I shared that I had problems in the past, and I asked if he was comfortable talking to a counselor.
We talked about who could be helpful for extra support for them and decided to call their family and tell them what's been going on.
The more we talked, the more concern she shared for her safety, so we agreed to get the residence hall advisor involved.
In Texas, we take care of each other.
In Texas, we support each other.
In Texas, we never walk alone.
In Texas, we look out for each other.
In Texas, we are family.
To help a friend with thoughts of suicide, follow 3 important steps. Recognize when they're having thoughts of suicide and respond. Warning signs for suicide include verbal cues that reveal feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, or feeling trapped, withdrawal, isolation, changes in mood, changes in sleep patterns, changes in substance use, alcohol or other drugs, giving important possessions away, looking for and obtaining the necessary items to attempt suicide, talking about death or dying if out of the ordinary. Take action and reach out directly or get others involved who can help. Ask directly about suicide. Express concern. Listen with empathy and no judgment. Remind them that help is available. Remind them that they're not alone. Make a referral to a supportive resource like a mental health professional or other campus or community resources.
In Texas,
We're all in this together.
So that video was obviously made for schools in Texas to respond to concerns about suicide. I hope it's not unique to Texas that we care about these things, but at LeTourneau, we certainly do care about this, and we don't want you to feel alone. If you are a person who is struggling with suicidal thoughts or kind of fixations around suicide, or if you're a person who's close with somebody who is, we want you to reach out and get some help. Do not feel like you have to do this alone. Your residence life staff, your student life staff, have seen this before, have dealt with this before. We are happy to help, and we want to work with you as much as you're comfortable with to get you the support that you need. So don't be shy one bit about asking for help. We know that college is hard. We know that this time is hard. We know that there are lots of reasons that people struggle, and we have seen people get help and do so much better moving forward in their lives, and we want to be able to offer that level of support to you. So I'm going to share here my contact information. Again, any of these topics, I am more than happy to talk with you about. Your information is confidential with me. The things that you share, I will not be calling your parents or telling other professors or other people on campus about your concerns. We just want to be able to help you and support you while you're here, and we don't want you to feel alone with any of these circumstances if you come into contact with them. So please get in touch. I'll have contact with you in lots of ways moving forward. So I'll be leading a chapel pod. I work with student government. I work with a lot of the impact groups. You will see me around, and hopefully you will get to the point that you know that you can trust me and you can come to me or any of your student life staff with questions and concerns, because we want to be able to support you and help you. So thank you for your time this morning, and I hope to see you all soon.